We are going to look at significant figures and how to figure them out when you have a number. So let's start by thinking about it in a little bit of a metaphorical way because it will help us remember for later. So this is a basic map of the United States. On the left-hand side is the Pacific Ocean, and on the right side is the Atlantic Ocean. And that's going to help us actually figure this out. So what we're going to use is we are going to look at Pacific, and Pacific for present. It's also on the left. I'm going to write left so we remember. And then Atlantic is on the right. It's also A for absent. And it's on the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that to help us figure out how to identify significant figures. So if we have this number, let's use a number to start with. 0.0004, let's say. Okay, in this number, the decimal point is present, which means I'm going to use the Pacific. And I'm basically going to go from the left, which is where the Pacific is, and go all the way until I hit the first non-zero value. Okay, so what that tells me is that my first non-zero value is this 4. There are no values after it. And so it tells me that in this case, I have one significant figure. All right, let's look at the other way, and then we're going to make the a little more challenging. Okay, so let's say we had 300. There's no decimal point, which means that what we have is we have an absent decimal point. So we're going to use Atlantic, which is from the right because it's on the right side of the US. And I am going to look right all the way until I hit the first non-zero value. And the first non-zero value is a 3. I have no other numbers here other than the zeros on the right side. So this also actually has one significant figure. All right, so these are the most simplest form. Now let's kind of make these a little bit more realistic to what you're going to experience. Let's do 0.00410. Okay, a little bit more complicated. We're going to do the same rule we just did. So because our decimal point is present, we're going to use Pacific. So we're going to go from the left and we're going to hit the first non-zero value, which is this 4 right here. And every number after my first non-zero value is significant. So everybody here, significant, which means I have 3 sigfigs. Okay, now on the other side, let's do another one that's a little bit more complex. So we're going to take that 300 and let's do 303. We're going to do the same thing we just did. So there are no decimals, so we're going to start from the Atlantic side. And if I head this way, my first non-zero number is actually the first value. It's right here. And because everything else we are going to include inside. And that 0 is in the middle, which actually makes that a little bit easier also to count. If you see a 0 between two non-zero numbers, also significant. So this one also has 3 significant figures. Okay, so let's continue to escalate and see what happens. What if our value is actually 1.00410? Right, now we've gotten a little bit more complicated. We're going to do the same thing. We have a present decimal, which means we're going to go from the Pacific side. And actually, my first non-zero value is this 1 right here. And so basically what that tells us is that every single value afterward is significant. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are sigfigs here. And then let's do one more that's a little bit more complicated on the other side, just so we have some clarity around this. When we don't have any decimal places. So let's do 3, 0, we'll make that a 4, 1, 5, 0. Make this a little bit of a big number. Now, same thing, no decimal place. So we're going to start from the Atlantic side, and I'm going to hit my first non-zero value, and that's a 5, which means that I'm going to count every number going this way. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 significant figures.